So I'm here with my friend Yin, and she kindly agreed to have a chat with me and talk about some of the transformations that she's gone through recently and more in the distant past. She is a physician, and we'll let her talk a little bit more about that. So without too much further ado, we'll just introduce Yin. Hi.
Hi, Angelo. Nice to meet you.
It's very nice to
Thanks for
meet you.
getting me here. Yeah, thanks for getting me here.
Yeah.
So yeah, should I just start or
Well, how long ago did we meet? To remind me, because I kind of
I
forget how I
think
meet people sometimes.
I think I met you because I added you on Facebook because I read your book. So
Ah,
I saw you on YouTube with ZDoc MD, on the very first one you did with him. And I was so surprised because I was like, oh wow, medical practitioners talking about awakening. That's very strange. No one does that. And then you introduce your book. I bought your book that night. I finished it all in one night because I was like, this yeah. It's just I just woke up throughout the night and read it all. I was like, oh, okay. And then somehow Facebook just introduced me as like, you might want to add this friend. I was like, okay. So I think you posted me a message after you see some of my posts and it's like you might want to join this group and such.
oh,
So I think
okay.
that was the very first time
Okay. It was
I
from
met
my
you. Yeah.
recollection 6 months ago
Yeah.
or so, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
All right.
Yeah, I think so. About a year, I think,
Yeah.
or 6 months. Yeah.
And when you read my book, you had already had some knowledge and some insight, and you knew about awakening and Buddhism and that sort of thing at that point. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was I was very into meditation at that point. I think I
Mhm.
was doing I took a career break. So I was doing like a semi-retreat,
Mhm.
meditating quite a lot, probably 5 to 6 hours a day, I would
Mhm.
say. That was probably 1 year in. So when I read your book, I was like, this is, I mean, this makes sense. But I think coming from a physician is very different because
Mhm.
you are completely a lay person, which is who is just working full time,
Mhm.
completely different from a monastic person. So this just
Mhm.
opens my eye. Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
maybe we should start by just giving us a little bit of background about yourself. Maybe where you
Okay.
came from, where you grew up, maybe just a little bit about your childhood and family life, and any perhaps significant events in childhood that sort of attuned you to truth, or maybe that opened something a
Hmm.
little bit out of the ordinary that for you, if anything like that comes up. But I'd just be curious to hear about your childhood.
Okay. Um, Actually, there's nothing too prominent in my childhood that probably brought me to this kind of seeking. I grew up in Malaysia, for everyone to know, in a small town. My childhood was pretty happy, very happy childhood, good family. I both my parents are very well educated. They graduated from university, so we had a very, I would say, a normal Asian family in Malaysia. You go through the education process. You do. I was quite studious as a child, read a lot. And I think it wasn't until, so I was brought up in a Buddhist family. It was culturally Buddhist. I wouldn't say that they are seeking awakening all along. Like it's not like that. It's just more towards the Asian Buddhism. Like we go to temples, we pray, on special occasion. We have an altar at home, but it wasn't something like full on chanting, full on meditating, not like that. There wasn't any meditation in Asia, not much. So
Hmm.
it's more of the cultural part. So I grew up that way. So I know a little bit about Buddhism, very surface, just know the rituals, but I've never delved in it as a child. So I think I really met Buddhism when I was working in the UK. So just go back a bit. So I went to study Ireland, study medicine. Went there to study for a few years and then came back to Malaysia to serve, work in the public hospitals. And then after that, I went back to the UK to work there. So at that point, I met Buddhism there, which is completely different from the Buddhism in Asia. So that opened up my eyes. I was like, why is the people here taking Buddhism more seriously? Like they don't have the chanting, they don't have the praying, they don't have the altar, they don't have the joss stick, but they have the meditation, they have the studying of Buddhism that they really go into it. So I sat with a few groups of people when I was in UK in a small town called Colchester. They have a Buddhist center there. And I got really curious at that point. But I didn't go deep. So, and after 3 years working in the UK, I came home. There was an opportunity of doing business with my brother. So I came home, and I think at that point, things started going a little bit stressful. Like, of course, medical job is quite stressful. Um, yeah, but when I came home to a lot of problems at home. Mainly, I think my dad was having a medical condition that I couldn't figure out. I was a physician and I couldn't figure out. It was like an upper arm DVT, which
Mm,
never happened to most people, and there is no cause. And
right.
so was this cancer shock. Like, is this malignancy or things? So it just comes as a shock to you because you never thought that your dad would go through such thing. He was like healthy and well before that, and I came home to a business that is not doing very well. My brother was in a lot of anxiety. So suddenly things just comes full on, and I started getting really anxious. And I think at that point I started asking, um, do we really need to live like that? What is the point? I think it seems very normal to other people, but to me it's like a huge existential crisis at that point. So I started looking into the thing that is most easy to look into, which is Buddhism.
Mm,
I think that got me interested, and I started I read this book. I think it was by Ajahn Brahm, Mindfulness, Bliss, and Beyond. I don't know if you have heard it
I haven't
before.
read it.
So he talked about a lot about jhanas, so the deep jhanas. So I
Hmm.
tried to practice that, but I could not go into jhanas like
Hmm.
as usual. After 6 months, I decided, nah, this is not for me. I don't think I can solve suffering this life. This is impossible. So I remember I texted a friend. I was like, I couldn't go into jhanas. This is the end. Like, no, this is not for me. And I remember him telling me, like, do you want to look into Vipassana? So I was like, what is that? What is Vipassana? I've never heard of that. I heard of meditation, heard of jhanas, but not Vipassana. So I started Googling, and then all these things comes up. I think Daniel Ingram comes up, Dharma Overground comes up, all the forums comes up. I was like, oh, this is a whole new world. So I think I've spent a week reading Daniel Ingram's book. It was out of my mind. Like, it wasn't something I recognized, but I thought there was some truth in that
Hmm.
because he wrote it in a very experiential way. Like, it's all his experience, and I think I thought that there's something there that I should look into. So I think that was the rabbit hole. That was the start of the rabbit hole. And then yeah, and I started so going forward, I think I was reading Daniel's book, and I sort of know what is Vipassana now. Like, you sort
Hmm.
of look clearly at things around you. So I read Mahasi Sayadaw's handbook, the thin one, not the thick one, the just the chapter 5 of the practical
Can I ask you a
insight
couple
meditation.
questions first
Yeah,
about
yeah,
what you
yeah.
said a
Go
minute
for
ago?
it.
Then we
Yeah,
can go into
yeah,
because these details are good for people who are interested in picking these up. But I wanted to back up just a moment. And can
yeah,
you touch in a little bit more to when you described how, and the reason I go back to this is because I really try to gear these towards anyone who's going through this kind of thing, and maybe they can relate to the knowledge of Buddhism, or even a
yeah.
tradition of Buddhism, but not really necessarily getting the taste of what Buddha is really pointing to yet. And then
Yes,
something very practical and very human happens. And for you, you described it was the stress of being faced with, illness in your family member,
yeah,
potential serious illness and an unknowing and you said stress and even anxiety. Can you talk a little bit more about, did that surprise you? Had you not experienced that degree of sort of suffering in life, up until that point? And can you get to what your instinct was, that there was a
yeah,
way through that?
yeah, I could. So I've grown up quite lucky. So I've grown up quite protected as well. Not terribly protected because I still go alone to a foreign country to work. So the challenges I think in my life wasn't huge. So it wasn't like a hit in the face, as opposed to when one of my loved ones is like, because to people who don't know medicine, upper arm DVT is something that sort of signal your dad might have cancer. So that is huge for me. Um, and if it's in the upper arm, it's like something quite huge sitting there or causing something. So that was very huge for me. And then I finally understand how bad is suffering, like the impact of suffering. You could suffer day to day, but it wasn't something like you couldn't solve. And I think for 2 to 3 months, I was in quite bad anxiety. And that was the first time I had anxiety. I had anxiety, of course, before. Working in medicine gives you a lot of anxiety, especially if you're working in the front line, medicine, A&E, general medicine, when 20 people keep talking to you and everyone's crashing in the hospital. That's anxiety, of course.
Yeah.
But this is a different kind. This is like an existential kind of anxiety. Like, what am I doing here? Why am I running this business when my dad is sick? Like,
Mm,
what's the point of life? I
yes.
don't see the point. It's like, is this all? Like,
Right.
so I study so hard and I can't even solve my dad's problem. So
Mm.
this all this question comes, and then so I
Life
have
is
a few.
life is so
Yeah,
intelligent, isn't it? Like
yeah,
it puts you, because you have, the good conditioning, a good family, and you're well
yeah,
educated, you work hard, but it gives you the exact combination of events sometimes to
yeah. Oh my God,
really
yeah,
open something to where you start to question deeper, and
yeah.
that's
It
that's what
just
I
cracks
sense when
me
you
open.
describe that. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, and it's fine. Yeah, it was just the right combination, like you say. It's like you need to have all this coming together to wake this person up, because she's too comfortable. Like I was in postgraduate, I have money, I have a job, I have a good family, I have a good relationship with my partner. So there's nothing much you can hit this person unless everything just comes full on. So yeah, I had quite bad anxiety, and it was so bad that I have never experienced that kind of anxiety before. I thought I couldn't function. And the first thought was going to a psychologist or a psychiatrist because of my medical background. And because I know what they are going to do to me.
Mhm.
Um, you know what they're
Mhm.
going to do. They're going to give you some antidepressant. They're going to diagnose you first according to the DSM, right? And then they're going to
Mhm.
give you something. And you're probably going to be on that pill forever,
Mhm.
like forever and ever. And then there's no I don't want to give up so easily. At that point, I was like, I'm not gonna go. Like, I know what they're gonna do. It's gonna be
Mhm.
like cognitive behavior therapy. It's not a with all due respect to psychiatrists and psychologists, but that's not what I wanted for myself at that
Mhm.
point. So I was seeking really hard at that time because of the suffering. I watched a lot of YouTubes on how to take all this anxiety away at different point of from different aspect, New Age, everything, Buddhism, I think some Hinduism as well, a lot of things, even very strange stuff, all that kind of strange stuff. I read them
Yeah.
all. I was like,
See, so many
there's so
people are
much.
there. So many
Yeah,
people are right there where you're describing, where
yeah,
and a lot, so many people after I did the Z-Dog interviews contacted both of us saying that like I just was searching. I didn't even really know what I was searching for, but I knew I was suffering, and something told me I could find a way out of it or way through it or
exactly.
something.
That was the
I
feeling.
was curious, did you relate when you talked about this, like this other level of anxiety and describing it as suffering? At that point, did you relate that to like Buddhism, like the Four Noble Truths, the first noble truth specifically ever, or?
I did a little bit. I was like, finally, I understand this is suffering. This is really
Mm,
bad.
mm,
And then I was asking, I was like, this is the life events are not that bad. This is an illness in your family, a business that's struggling, which is what you're gonna face all your life. So if you're not gonna solve this at this point, you're gonna meet this again and again until you're old. So do I want to do this like all my life? I think I need to sort of find a solution out of
mm.
it, like
I
now.
can totally relate. I can
It's
totally
either
relate.
now or never. So that was my thinking then. And then I think I saw one sentence in this Buddhist book that says that life is an illusion. I don't know why, but I sort of trusted that. I was like, I kind of want it to be an illusion because this is too painful. The
Mhm.
kind of feeling, I was like, I don't know whether this is right or wrong. And I started seeking. So when I seek, there's so many opinions out there. There's so many things that you can do. There's this Reiki thing. There's this so many things. I was so confused. And I think at one point I was like, I'm not gonna sick anymore.
Mhm.
This is just wasting my time because I'm still suffering right here. And there's just so much talk outside. So I'm just gonna focus on one thing that is the easiest, and not the easiest, that is closest to me, which is Buddhism.
Mhm.
That's just come naturally because I was brought up and the books are all around, the resources are here. So I'm just gonna do one thing this life if I because the Buddhism, someone gave me a lot of sutta books. They are huge. They are like 1,000 suttas, like crazy. Like if
Yeah,
I
there's
need
a
to
lot.
learn all this to solve suffering, it's kind of long road. So I can't be spending time reading all that stuff, right? Because I need to solve this problem. That's why I think at that point I just like stop. I'm just gonna do Buddhism this life, and then I can do others next lives. That's what my innocent thinking was.
Mhm.
And then I just stopped seeking so much. I still seek, but I just try to focus my way. Let's just see what Buddhism talks about in
Yeah.
suffering. Since the first noble truth is the life is suffering,
Mm.
like they kind of know it, right? They kind of talk about the right thing. So let's just
Yeah.
go there. So that was
Yeah.
my innocent thought at that point. Yeah.
Mm. And then you said you read Ingram's book, and then you
Yeah.
went to, what was the next thing you said you read after that?
The first thing I read was Ajahn Brahm's Jhana Handbook.
Mm.
The instruction was really simple. It's basically sit down, relax, breathe until you see a nimitta, and go into jhana. But I couldn't. It was so simple. I think it was page 10
Mm.
or 15 that he already talked about nimitta. I was like, if I can't get through page 15 after 6 months of meditating, so I just read that instruction, I stopped seeking, and I sat.
Mm.
I sat for 2 to 3 hours a day, just doing concentration. Of course, there's improvement, but it's not until I could go into jhana, because of course I know now it's quite a hard thing for our lay people's mind to do. I did not
Mm.
know that then. I was very innocent. So I really sit for 6 months. I even do a retreat by myself, just sitting.
Yeah.
Um, it didn't work. I was like, I've tried this. It didn't work. It's not like I did not try. I really tried very hard. I sat for 8 hours a day. It did not work. This jhana did not work.
Mm.
So at that time, I texted a friend, and then the Vipassana thing came up, and Daniel Ingram's book came up. Daniel Ingram's book feel very intimate, like something he talks about. It's not something. It's like this is correct. This is not against the Buddha's teaching. It was all about the three characteristics. It was all about insights. He was suffering. He himself suffered a lot. I could relate to his suffering because you go to med school, is suffering, the interviews, the work. I could relate to that a lot because I was a medical practitioner then. And I was like, I should look into this. This feels really real. Like, I think I know there's lots of bad raps about Daniel Ingram, but I still respect him as someone who put this out there. Yeah, so that was the start of my rabbit hole, I think. Long
For
story
me,
short.
I really like to point people to try some things and feel into what's right for them, because someone might have picked up that first book and it really clicked for them. It didn't click for you. And then
Yeah,
Ingram did. And, the pragmatic Dharma, groups and
yeah,
stuff, that they just have a totally different approach. That
yeah,
doesn't mean that traditional Dharma doesn't work either. You just try some things and see, and,
yeah,
trust those noble truths, really, ultimately, and trust your own instinct and your own intuition. And that's when
yeah,
you'll, but don't give up on it. Don't give up on the possibility
yeah.
of a
Don't give up on
deepening
it.
truth. Yeah. And that's what I seems like you did. And you worked hard at it, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
because
what happened
suffering is
after
too
that?
overwhelming. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so I talk about so Daniels introduced Mahasi Sayadaw in his book.
Mhm.
So he said there's this PIV instruction in the chapter 5 of Mahasi Sayadaw's manual of insight, which is the practical insight instruction. So I just downloaded that. It was free online. That was like probably about 20, 30 pages. It was a very simple read. So it's basically like the Satipatthana Sutta, but it's, it's his own way of teaching you how to note stuff. So I was like, I could do that, but this doesn't seem very logical. I could not link how do you remove suffering and trying to name, touch um, my breath and my abdomen. I, I, it's just so crazy. I was like, how does it work? But I sort of like have no other way. There's no other way to solve suffering except you want to take the pill of antidepressant that could solve it temporarily. So I tried. I sat again because I was already sitting. This time around, I start noting. So I noted everything, probably 2 to 3 hours a day. And then things started happening for me pretty fast. I don't know whether it's because I did so much concentration, so the power was huge. I started having, people call it the side effects of meditation. I started having shakes. um, I was sitting, I was noting, why do I have shakes? Like, this is very, very bad. Because I was opening my eye, I was completely conscious and I was seeing my hand shaking. This is like a seizure.
Hmm.
Like, I should be
Kundalini.
worried about this. Yeah,
We
I
don't
did
learn
not
about
know that.
Kundalini in med school, do we?
I did not learn that. Did
I
you?
didn't either.
I didn't. So I was like, this is simple partial seizure. I was a physician, so I know what is this. I was like, I could not do this. This is bad. This is seizure. I need to be on some anti-seizure. And I stopped. So the shaking stops when I stop. Um, but I started having all these lights, visions. I could not sleep very well at night. I did not know I was going through a insight stage. That was 3 weeks in, I think. I was meditating 3 weeks in, but it was quite intensive because it's like 2 to 3 hours a day. And then every time I keep sitting, every time I have shakes. So I was like, I cannot progress because I cannot have seizure each time I sit. This is not right. This is a medical condition.
Hmm.
So I started having this idea of looking for a teacher. I need to ask someone about this. So I started going through these Dharma groups. No one knows about this, unfortunately. I tried so hard. I even sat with a monk. He offered this online meditation interviews for free. So I booked a session and I spoke to him and I talked about all these weird things that's happening to me. Like I couldn't go on. I'm afraid. Of course. Just he just told me, just continue, it's fine. But and then the session ends there. With all due respect, I think he has his concerns. He's not going to tell me a lot of things about meditation because he's not going to put an experience for me to fabricate. I
Mhm.
understand that now. But at that point, it wasn't helpful. So at that point, I was like, no, it's not normal. To me, it's not normal. Like, you can't just tell me it's normal. This is not normal. I can't be. It's not just the hand shaking, the whole body shaking, the head shaking.
Hmm.
And every time I stop, it still shakes for probably like 10, 15 minutes before it
Mhm.
completely stops. And when I go to sleep, I shake in the bed. Like,
Mhm.
I can't do that. This is too much. It was quite bad for me.
Mhm.
So at that point, I thought to look for a teacher. So I started emailing people on Dhamma ground,
Mhm.
asking them if they would want to be my teacher. Um, Most of them are not teachers; they are just practitioners. So there's like it's not in their interest. I went on Reddit as well. I was searching quite hard then, looking
Mhm.
back. So I spent probably about a month or two looking for just looking for a teacher, and then eventually there was this very kind person who's like, I am a meditation teacher. I wouldn't reveal her name here because I think she wants to be kept.
Sure.
She wants a privacy kept. So I studied with her, and then it was very enlightening because she used the pragmatic Dharma style, which you can ask anything and she would explain to you everything. So that works for me. My personality is I need to know why I'm doing what, why is this happening, so that I cannot be, I cannot go on blind faith.
Mhm.
Um, I can't just pray to something and hope that things would change. It doesn't work for me that way
Yeah.
because with my background, I need to know what's the science of it. You just
Mhm.
tell me why am I having this. So I think it works very well for me. So I talk about my symptoms. My teacher was like, "Let me show you." She just opened the Access to Insight website, if you know that.
I
There
have not
was
seen it.
like, yeah, there was like an insight, um, a description of the insight map.
Mhm.
So all the symptoms are described there. So it's like, look at it. You are having this. So you are just right. I think it was in ANP or something,
Mhm.
arising and passing.
Yeah.
So you're here. It's fine. And if you look at the map, you slowly will progress through this. You're gonna suffer a bit. She said a bit, but
Okay.
you're gonna go through it nicely. And then this point, that would be the end of suffering. I was like, that's great. There's a map to end of suffering. I was very innocent back then.
Yeah.
So that was how it started. So I started
Mhm.
meditating so much.
Yeah. How many years ago
Yeah.
was this?
This was not long. This was probably 2.5 to 3 years ago, or probably,
Okay.
yeah, 2.5 to 3 years ago, I think.
Mhm. And you
Not long at all.
continued meditating in this in a similar way, or?
Yeah, I just took instruction from my teacher. So it's not too far away from what I was doing.
Mhm.
I think it's more, to describe it, it's more like what Kenneth Folks, do you know him?
I do. I've heard.
He
Yep.
he wa- he yeah, he had a few YouTubes, that kind of way, just to note things clearly, as clearly as you could,
Mhm.
in all in your whole consciousness. So you just do that again and again, again and again. I trusted the process because I have a lot of symptoms. I was like, there must be something happening. It won't, that's just very innocent. I did not
Mhm.
know about awakening or stuff. I just want to remove all the suffering.
Mhm.
That is all. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that was, I mean, that was what drove me initially for sure, is
Yeah.
I just could feel for me, as the older I got, from the time I was probably an older child, like it was just felt like layer after layer of suffering, and I could feel it in everyone around me. I could feel it everywhere, and it just was heavy, heavy. And
Oh dear. Okay. Yeah,
yeah,
I read it in your book a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
thinking for me, being in the world of thoughts was just, it was torture. It was not fun.
Same.
Yeah. So I think, there were a few different lines I read at different times that really clicked, but one of them was in the Three Pillars of Zen,
Oh
thinking
yeah.
is the disease of the human mind. I was like, yes, it is. Um,
That clicked
Another
for
one,
you.
another line I saw that for whatever reason it really clicked. It was not long before the big awakening for me, and it was in a book called like Three Pearls on a String or something. I don't even remember much about the book, but it said non-attachment is not non-feeling, it's non-attachment to what you're feeling. And as simple as that is, it just
Mm,
totally clicked for me at that time. I felt it's
so
like something
nice.
literally just fell off of me, and I was like, whoa, something is happening, this is really, really changing, and that's when I really
Oh
just
wow.
fully put full effort into kind of inquiry.
You were
And
really
so,
prime. Yeah.
oh yeah, I was ready. I was ready. Once you get that little taste of like, okay, something's
Yeah.
opening here. Yeah.
It's really nice. Yeah.
Mm.
It's really nice to see how people get into things,
Hmm. Yeah.
get into all this very strange business.
And it's
Yeah.
always so intimate to them, like if you,
Yeah.
and that's what I think I try to do, is just talk to people and find their natural entry point, because they're
Yeah. That's
walking,
true.
talking Buddha nature already. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
there, and there's
Yeah.
so much doubt. Oh, I don't know. I don't know how to do it. I don't know this. I don't know. Like, you do actually, but
Yeah.
let's feel into it, that kind of thing. And it's so beautiful because everyone finds it in their own way. And it's always such an aha
That's
when you
true.
realize, oh, it's been here the whole time. I've been looking for it,
Yeah. That
So,
was a bit underwhelming for me. I was like, oh my God, is this?
right. Well, that's the
Really?
thing, isn't it? Like sometimes when there was so much seeking, you can like make it something in your mind that's
Yeah, I did.
way more than it actually is. And yet the insight, the shift in identity is clear and
Yeah.
important. Tell me
Yeah.
about that. Tell me about that for you.
Okay. So about that shift of identity.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So I think anyone who's familiar about the insight stages know you would move through paths and paths. So that didn't resonate with me because all I wanted to do was remove the suffering. So I have a very good reference point to know whether I'm getting better because I could still feel the suffering. So it's a very good guidance. If the suffering doesn't decrease in my life, it doesn't work. So
Hmm.
that's as simple as that because that's the only thing I wanted to do. I did not want any spiritual powers. I don't care for that. I just take off all this suffering so I can function like a human. I can do my work. I can take
Hmm.
care of my parents, etc. Whatever. Um, so what happened was I just keep meditating and things started changing for me. Just by doing this noting, I did not have a place to put my experience in context because I do not know much of the views in Buddhism. I did not read much at that point. I was just taking instruction from my teacher and just practice. And I think at one point my perception becomes really wide open and I was really enjoying it. I did not understand anything. I just went out. I do not like to walk in the sun previously, but now I just go out. I was like, this is beautiful. Why is things so beautiful? Did I not see this before? Why are the trees so bright? Why is it so crystal like? I was just looking at it for a long time, probably like 6 months. I was just enjoying it. I was just walking in the forest. It's like, why are the trees moving towards me? This is strange. Things like that, small things like that. And then why is the grass looking so beautiful? Why is it like shining? So these are the little entry points. And I was like, there's something here. I was meditating. I have a lot of doubts about whether this will work. Because I don't get how looking at something simple could just change the whole thing into awakening. I could not imagine how the link works. But because I have no other choices, I have to believe in something that I want to, just this little promise, a little hope, I would say.
Yeah. Mhm.
But when things changed for me, I was like, I felt a bit more confident. I think that was quite long in. That was a year in after
Mm.
meditation. It wasn't taking into the account that I was meditating 5 to 6 hours a day. That's a lot of hours put in. I wasn't working at that point already. I was like, I just want to resolve this suffering. I'm gonna stop working for a while since I can. I still have some savings. So I did that. And then I I think your book resonated. Somehow your book came into the picture when I was enjoying all these beautiful things. And then you talk about it in your book. I was like, oh wow, someone knows about this. Like this is not a secret. And then I think when I posted, I was recommending your book to people on my Facebook, and then you just send me a link to the Awakening to Reality group. um, I went in, I downloaded the document. I was like, why is people talking about why is this 1,000 pages? Like, how do I read this? It's crazy.
I've
The
never read
knowledge
it.
that have you not? Oh
No.
gosh, it's 1,000 pages, but um, I did not read it all at first. I was just glancing through it, and it resonated with me really well.
Mhm.
I was like, they are describing what I'm experiencing. So they are talking about the lucidness, the
Mhm.
brightness. I was like, oh, great. Someone knows about this because no one talks about this outside, unfortunately. You don't find this in Dharma books, unfortunately. I've read enough Dharma books to know that it's not in there.
Mhm.
Not even in the sutta. The Buddha doesn't tell you your leaf would look pretty, one point. And I think with the view that the ATR document and the meditation that I'm doing, things change really fast. I was like, I get what they're trying to say now. And it's like 1+1 equals to 2. Everything
Mhm.
just fits like a glove. Um, at one point, I was started a lot of inquiry. My teacher started introducing inquiry after probably a few months of meditation, 8 months, I think. It was quite late in. So I started to ask, who am I?
Mm.
Um, at first I did not take it seriously. I was like, what is this kind of stupid thing? What is
Mhm.
asking who am I works?
Did
How does
you
it solve
did
my
you find
suffering?
that it didn't make sense? Like, so what
I
was
find it didn't make sense.
right? Like, because you're it's so obvious who you are that why would you ask? Is
Yeah,
it that kind of thing? Yeah. Okay.
yeah. I was like, oh, what's I think I find it really weird, really
Mhm.
strange. I
Mhm.
was like, who am I? But after a while, I realized when because when you start noting, you did not note an I. You start noting and it's like there's no I here. So the who am I started making sense. I
Yeah.
was like, okay. And then I started going out. I was like, okay, who am I? So I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not everything. I'm nothing of this. If I can name it, it's not me.
Mhm.
So that's as simple as that. I was like, this is very strange. Um, I did not pursue it, but I was like, somehow it would just work. I thought the whole path would just work by itself. Like I do
Mhm.
not need to put in much effort. I just thought innocently like that
Yeah.
because that was my impression of the insight stages. And then I started asking a lot of who am I because I find something really strange there. And there was this experience when at that point, I was meditating for about a year already. So my mind got really powerful. Like the noting just it's so quick. Like everything is just so quick. And I could note my emotions. Initially, I could not note my emotions at all. I don't know what I was feeling inside. I started at a
Mhm.
very, very low place, a very, very basic place. I have to really feel what is happiness, what is joy. It was so bad, probably because of repression in Asian culture. I don't know.
Mm.
And at that point, I was sitting and I realized I did not need to know anything. The mind starts noting by itself. Why is it so strange? It was very mind blowing for me. I was like, why is the mind noting everything? Like, it just goes on the whole hour. The mind is just noting. And when I go to sleep, before I sleep, the mind is still noting. It's like it does that all the time. And then I did not try to find out. I thought it was just very strange. Like, oh wow, the mind is nothing. I did not need to do anything. Where am I?
Mm.
I just know I just sit there. I was like, oh, I can relax now finally. Like I did not because the noting work, if people starts doing it, is very tedious
Mhm.
at first. It feels so tiring. And 5 to 6 hours of it in a day is really, really tiring. It feels
Yeah.
like a full-time job. It's worse than a full-time job. And then when I do not need to note, I do not need to name it, label it, I feel so relaxed. I feel like,
Mm.
oh, finally I can rest. And somehow these things just keep doing itself. but I do not understand why.
So,
Yeah,
it hits me. Tell me if I'm wrong about how I'm perceiving what you're saying, but you
yeah,
spend this time doing the noting. And for anyone who doesn't know, you're noting sounds, body
yeah,
sensations, emotion,
yeah,
thought. Yes. Just
everything.
simple noting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then once it's going on its own, it's almost as if when the noting was going on and it felt like someone was doing it, it was almost
yeah,
like that was backward rationalizing the sense of a someone. And now that it's going
yeah,
on its own, you can actually look and go, wait a minute.
yeah.
Well, who am I
It was
then?
shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like, why am I needed? If everything can notice themselves, why am I needed? Like, I was like, okay, at first I rested, and then I find it really strange. I was like, why is this person even needed here?
Mm.
And that's really, really strange. Um, it was mind blowing, I think. For me, that experience was mind blowing. And then I had the ATR document, I had these experiences, and then it started making sense. I was like, maybe could I entertain the thought that maybe I'm not there? I don't need to be there. And then I started investigating further. I started investigating where does the awareness stop. And then I realized my awareness is not here. It's there. It's just very simple thing like that. Because I was walking outside, I was like, why is the trees walking towards me?
Mm-hmm.
It's very I remember driving on a highway. I was going to work. I helped my friends part-time. And I realized this car is not moving forward. The trees are coming here. This
Mm-hmm.
is very, very prominent in my experience. And you can't deny someone's experience. I know logically it does not make sense.
Right.
Like, of course, you are going forward, you're
Mm-hmm.
driving a car. But this experience tells me that the trees are coming towards me and it's
Yeah.
very fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and I investigated. I was like, okay, the awareness is there. I'm sort of there. There's
Mm-hmm.
these few glimpses. And then another experience was I was running on a treadmill at my home during lockdown. It was the COVID lockdown. I was staying in my home for so long. I look at this mirror in front of me. There was a mirror. And I was like, why is the reflection looking at me? That is very scary. Yeah, it was things like that. I do not
Mm-hmm.
understand it much, but there
Yeah.
were glimpses. I think it was the sense of self becoming really porous at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So the glimpses that coming in. And then I started taking the Bahiya Sutta into investigation because I think it makes sense. I suddenly feel that, yeah, in the sin, I don't really get that yet, but I just like, let me just try to investigate this. So I just go around. I was like, how could the sin be in the sin, just in the sin?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, let me just try to do this for everything because I have the noting background. So it's easy for me. And then it feels like I came home. I remember I came home. Things were still very dual for me. So there was still an observer here at that point. And I came home to my parents' home. I was sitting in the dining room. I was reading, I was reading something. I think I was reading a Mahamudra's book. I was just reading about, I think it was the Clarifying the Natural State or something. That book was really powerful. I was sitting there and my mom was trying on her new speakers. And I don't really care for it, but I was just listening. I was like, something is very different with the sound. Okay, let me just investigate. Oh wow, the sound is just floating by itself there. So there was nothing here. It was very, very different from the sound before. I was like, wow, okay, is this what they are talking about? In the
Mm-hmm.
hearing only the in the what do you call it again? In the heard only the heard or something, in
Mm-hmm.
the sound
Yeah.
only the
In the
sound.
sound or in the hearing, only the heard. Yeah.
Yeah, in the hearing only the heard. I was like, okay, so this works. This I spent that evening just listening to the sound. I was so fascinated.
Mm-hmm.
I think I spent that week just listening to music. I was just like, let me try it again. It's still there. So the sound is still by itself, just floating in air. Wow, this is very fun.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that the sound happened for me first, and then I did that on the taste. The taste is just floating. Like, oh wow,
Mm-hmm.
this is easy. Taste is easy for me. Smell is very easy for me. But the vision was very hard for me, probably
Mm-hmm.
because I was closing my eyes, noting. I wasn't really taking into the scenery. So, and then it was the last, I think I know that was the last thing that needs to break for me to really allow me to see what it is. I do not know what it is, but I know there's something beyond that. I was a little bit scared then.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, these things started to really change now. I'm a bit
So for
scared.
anyone, so for anyone listening,
Yeah.
what we're talking or what you're talking about is it's literally changing the way you're experiencing your environment. It's not something in
Yeah.
the mind. It's not a thought. It's not a
No.
belief thing. The
No.
way sound appears and the way the visual field actually appears significantly shifts. It actually changes to where you're not hearing a sound somewhere out there. It's like the hearing and the sound are all one thing. And
Yeah.
for me, at least, I couldn't even tell you where it is. Like, it's not out or in. It's too
Yeah.
close to be either
No.
one, sort of. And
Yeah.
it's more real than the way the mind feels real, I guess.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
said it right. Yeah. It's not a belief. It's not your mind. It's just literally how you're experiencing the world. It's literally how you're experiencing the world right now, as opposed to how I am experiencing the world right now. It's different. Like, you cannot deny this. It's like I have this hand here. You cannot tell me I don't have a hand here. It's just
Yeah.
like that.
It's
So
it's more
it's
it's like more obvious than the sun when you look right at it, in a sense. It's
exactly, yeah,
and I know that this can be very frustrating, and I always try to gear this towards anyone who's listening. It can be really frustrating to hear this because, and I think I know why, because the mind is so laden with doubt. The mind can believe something, but it also doubts it at the same time. The mind is in the
yeah,
game of belief, doubt. This
yeah,
is the beauty of this is first of all, it's available to anyone because it's already there. But second of all, it's not doubtable. That's the weirdest
yeah,
thing about it. But instinctual, it's instinctual. It's so obvious. It's intimate.
yeah,
And it's like coming home, but your
yeah,
home isn't at one place. It's
yeah,
everything is just home, home, home.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You said
Anyway,
it
go
very
ahead. Sorry,
well.
I don't mean to
Where
interrupt.
was I? Oh yeah, oh
Visual.
yeah. The vision board, the visual board. So I took that. I was like, I need to investigate this vision thing. So I started opening my eyes when I meditate. I did not meditate much anymore at that point. Not in the sense that I note, because the noting just happens by itself. So I find that I don't need to do anything much. So I just sit there and start investigating, start questioning everything. Um, Start asking why. So I was just sitting in my balcony, and there's this building opposite my balcony. I was just looking at the building for such a long time. It's a little bit crazy, to be honest. I just look at the building. I was like, why is there a person looking at this? Why can't the building look at itself, like the sound? Um, what is it? What is it that needs to go? I could not make that thing go, but I think I was focusing the wrong way. Now looking back, I was focusing on something here, and then I just accentuate that thing. I just emphasize that thing, which becomes stronger. I was like, why can't I just relax? I did that for so many weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. I was so frustrated. I was so frustrated. I was like, I don't know how to do this thing. This is too much. I think I cried from frustration. I was like, oh my God, just go. I know this bond needs to go. I cried too much during meditation anyway. For people who think this is a smooth journey, it is not. Um, yeah, so I think the turning point was I posted something very random on Facebook. I posted a sentence as saying, why is there something not letting go here? I just posted that. I just posted that frustration. I was just like so frustrated. I need help. And I think John was on my Facebook friends at that point. I don't know what makes him reply. He does not reply usually. He posted a comment there. He's talked about the same thing, like the Bahia Sutta, and he says something. He's like, just let go until one day the letting go does it without reason. He just says that. I was like, okay, good. I would just let go until one day. I do not understand it. I was just, but I know I need to let go. This I couldn't just keep on forcing this thing to go. So I let go. I was like, okay, maybe this instruction is correct because John knows more than me, right? So I just let go. I gently let go. I just like whatever. If it's gonna go, it's going by on its own term. So there was one day when I was sitting on my sofa. I was looking at this Buddha image in front of me, and I read this line in the ATR document, just a Mahamudra's quote. It just says that you just relax your vision on whatever in front of you. Just relax and let it show itself to you. Just let it show itself to you. Don't force it. And I did just that, and the bond just break there and then. It just gone. I know it because I feel it every day, and I was so frustrated with that little thing that I feel like I want to cut it, but it couldn't go.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if people sense that was the way to me, because sounds was already very non-dual to me,
Yeah.
and vision was very dual to me. So I have a comparison to make at that point.
Yes.
And when it just break, I was so confused. I was like, what is it now? It wasn't very it wasn't like angels singing, nothing like that. It was very scary. It was like, holy shit, I'm gone. So
Yeah.
now there is nothing here. So things are just floating everywhere. Before that, there was a strong observer for the vision, from the vision.
Hmm.
So it was a huge difference. And I went into a quite a bad anxiety 1 week after that event. I was feeling very freaked out. I
It's
was
it can be very
so
disorienting.
this it is very for me.
Hmm.
I was eating my dinner. I was like, oh my god, dinner is eating by itself. Where am I? I was like, I need that self back for a while. I need to. It feels like someone's gone.
Yeah.
It really feels like someone is gone, like your best friend is gone or something.
There's a
And I
lot of
woke up in the
grief in this
morning.
process.
It is. I
Hmm.
wake up in the. I did not expect that because I
Hmm.
did not. People always talk about the nice thing when you wake up.
Yeah.
And when I wake up in the morning, I started doing my usual routine by sitting there in the balcony. I was sitting there for so long already. And I was like, I feel really sad. Where's this person gone? Like, oh, it's gone. So what do I do now? Can I plan my life? I was like, I can plan my life still. It was a strange experience.
Yeah.
And I got used to it slowly, gently. I think it took me a while. It
Mm.
took me probably a month or two. Just I took a lot of time. I was just walking in the park. I was just like, this is very strange, but yet very beautiful because things are very bright, very lucid. I
Hmm.
think because of the things are so bright and lucid, you don't really miss the self so much.
Yeah.
You just
I think that's
started,
the transition is you feel
yeah,
like something so big has gone because even when you realize how much we're obsessed with the self, you
yeah,
don't really realize how much until it's essentially not there.
yeah,
Then it feels like there's a huge gap. There's something really missing in
yeah,
a sense. But even the perception of missing is based on this solidity idea that was based on
exactly.
self, which was an illusion anyway. And then it switches over to this like there's just the magnificence of the well non-dual but aliveness, the radical intimacy and vividness of everything. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true for me. That was my experience. I went to a pretty, I wouldn't say rough, but disorientating transition for 2 months, I would say. And I started looking into my experience again. Like now, how do I function? The one of the things that worry me most, and probably for other people as well, is like, could I function after not having a self?
Mm-hmm.
Could I still work as a medical practitioner? But I know I could because I saw you.
Mm-hmm.
You were fully functioning. So it does not make sense if I couldn't. You were an inspiration. So you gave me some hope. Like, okay, if you can work in a hospital, that's great because you need a lot of you need a lot of skills working in a hospital,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're on call and doing epidural and stuff. You
Yeah.
can't just be no one
Zoned
there.
out. You can't be zoned out.
Yeah, you can't be zoned out. You can't put it in the wrong space. That would be huge trouble, right? So,
Did
what
you
was
have
I
any
talking about?
practical like adjustments that you had to make? Did you note with especially with the visual field? Did you notice actually depth perception things with driving or having to be particularly careful in certain situations? Did you notice any of that? Because some people do.
I don't know.
No.
Probably I'm not driving that much.
Yeah.
I just noticed things coming to me,
Yeah.
and I enjoyed it. Yeah,
Yeah.
but depth perception is not that much. I
Yeah.
could still drive perfectly well now,
Hmm.
so that's not a worry. If
Hmm.
anyone worries about
Yeah.
driving, you could still function very well.
Hmm.
Like, but the thing I understand after that was it wasn't that a self is gone. It's not like that.
Hmm.
It's just how things have always been like that.
Hmm.
It's just that we conjured up this fake self here, thinking that we are in control of everything. And then we are so worried about these fake selves going and we couldn't function. It's like we are worried about Santa Claus going away. But
Hmm.
Santa Claus was never here in the first place. The presents still keep coming. Your parents still gonna give you presents.
Yeah.
It's just that you believe in a Santa Claus. So hopefully this makes people feel better.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't thinking like that. I was
Hmm.
thinking the completely wrong way.
Hmm.
I was thinking that what happens if this self is gone? But nothing happens because it has always been like that.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
just our wrong beliefs, right?
Hmm.
That we make up in our mind. And then yeah, things I just slowly look into my experience, and I think it took a few months for things to really clarify and I could see it clearly now how things are naturally. I wouldn't say naturally yet because I still have this solidity that I
Hmm.
still could perceive, which is emptiness, isn't it? Everything is just
Mhm.
illuminated by itself, in itself. So yeah, that was that a little bit of a bumpy ride
Mhm.
coming to this place.
Yeah, I wanted to make one point for anyone who might be watching this, who uh, I get comments on occasion. It's like effort, like about making effort at all, right? So the neo Advaita approach is just don't make effort, And there are times, as you just described, where you actually have to let go because your own effort is keeping the dualistic construct going in a sense. Yet I want to point out to anyone who just listened to that, you put in a lot of effort. You really, and it was a lot of frustration, and you went through a lot of emotion with that frustration, and it's all part of the deal, and
Yeah,
it works, and it pays off, but
it does.
you got to make it a priority. And I commend you for you taking all that time off in your life to make this that much of a priority in your life and spending that much time and effort. And you don't just do it for you might feel like you're doing it for yourself until you don't, until you realize that that
Yeah,
actually could have never been happening, which then it's like, well, what
yeah,
what is this about? And then the fun part starts, right? It's because it's only about this is the only thing. It
yeah,
can only be about that, right? It's amazing,
yeah,
but it just does
yeah.
that.
It's
All
nothing
it
about you.
self-propagates.
Yeah.
um and yeah, yeah.
The effort part is really true. I hope people don't say that you don't do anything and then you just get here. I remember telling my teacher once, I told her that because my teacher keep giving me confidence, I have a lot of doubt on a journey. I did not believe this could work a lot of times. And one thing I want to make a point is that in Asia, there is this thing about in a monastic area, there's this thing about female not being able to ordain fully. So that
Mm,
sort of gave me an impression that what is wrong with female not being able to ordain fully? If people do not understand it clearly, it's a cultural thing.
mhm.
You need probably all the sangha together to actually ordain someone. But it sort of impressed into your mind that is there something lesser about females not being able to come to this awakening? If there's anyone having doubts about this, it's not. It's not about that. It's completely nonsense.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful because I met a teacher who is not Asian, and she looks at me and she's like, "You need to stop being Asian," and she's like, "You need to stop being bringing all your Asian culture into this because I do not know anything about your temples, but I
Mhm.
know something about awakening. And if you want to come here, you need to drop all that baggage." So if there's any Asian people probably in my community hearing this, just don't listen to all this female being lesser,
Mm.
all that kind of nonsense is just completely bullshit.
I
They are
totally
not
agree.
awakened. They are not awakened, so they could not relate.
Right.
They could just listen to all these doctrines. If it might be very weird to Westerners, but it is something quite entrenched and indoctrinated in our culture
Yeah.
that
You
females are
know,
lesser. Yeah,
I 100% agree with you, and your teacher gave very good instruction. I would broaden it to it's not just about being in your experience and your mindset and your upbringing and everything. It was about the Asian culture and so forth, as you described. But what I want to make a broader point in, don't overlook the the pressure of your own culture, the social constructs, whatever it is, whether you're male, female, young, old, how much power that has over you when you're in doubt all the
yeah,
time. When you're in doubt all the
yeah,
time, you look for things to doubt about yourself, about the world. And it's really heavy. And you really have to be willing to see through your own paradigms. And
yeah,
it's scary in a way because you're letting go of a lot of what used to stabilize you.
yes.
But again, I commend, as I always do, I commend you for being able to break through all the barriers and
It
prove
wasn't easy.
prove to
Yeah,
yourself. And that's not easy. The other thing I want to
the
say though
yeah,
is all things being equal, if I'm honest, I think women wake up faster than men generally. Now, anyone can wake up for sure, and people can
yeah,
wake up to as deep stage realization as they're willing to really work at. It's certainly up to non-duality.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, there's definitely not a detriment from being female. There's no doubt about that in my mind.
yeah.
Definitely not. There may
Looking
be
back,
in
yeah,
traditional dharma as far as becoming ordained, but that's culture. That's not cultural. That even that's the system issue. But
the political, I
it's
think.
political. It
Yeah,
doesn't actually have to
yeah,
do with your potential to wake up. Not at
no,
all.
yeah,
So
not at
yeah.
all. So just to clarify this here, yeah, it's not at all. Um, my teacher is female. I'm glad I met a female person. So because the strength of her words are more powerful for coming from herself. She's European. She's living in New York, so she's completely. out of a different person from my culture. So she brings very good insights to what I'm not looking at, I'm not seeing in myself, all these mental blocks, all these doubts, all these things that I'm very open to her because she needs to know what's in my mind to help me, right? I'm
Mhm.
very open to her. So she started breaking all these barriers for me. So I'm very grateful for that. We don't know that we carry this baggage until it becomes a obstacle in our
Mhm.
on the path. I doubt so much. And what was I talking about doubting? Yeah, the effort. So the effort needs to be put in, the meditation and inquiry needs to be done. It's not that you just sit and do nothing and it will come here. It's no such thing. I don't see how one can come here without putting much effort in.
I think even the
I
people who
personally,
say that happened to them after 30 years of seeking and working really hard and becoming frustrated. And,
yeah,
because there is absolutely an uncaused aspect of this. It's right here, right now. But
yeah,
to completely ignore the effort that it took to see through the perceptual barriers that were very habituated, that
yeah,
continue to grab attention over and over away from what's right in front of our face, you can't
yeah.
overlook that, so.
No, you cannot overlook that. Yeah, you need to put out so much beliefs, whatever you have learned before. Give up a lot of things. You have to just open up yourself to being very receptive to what is in front of you right now. And
Mhm.
sometimes I think even our education blocks us,
Mhm.
becomes an obstacle. Is in my experience, even my medical background blocks me because I was seeing things from a very scientific way all the time. Like how like we were having this discussion about how things was reflecting into my eyes and there's someone here watching.
Mhm.
That was such a huge barrier for me to break through. And at one point I was so frustrated. I was like, I need to just let this whole science go. The
Mhm.
science can go away because I value the truth more than what science is telling me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just not going to look into science now. Just go away. Philosophy can go away. I'm just going to experience what I'm experiencing.
Mhm.
So there was a huge letting go because it was I was brought up in science. Like,
Yeah.
spent 30 years doing science and suddenly you want me to ignore the fact that I'm looking here from something reflecting into my retina. That's very, very hard. So it takes a lot of effort to, I think. It was kind
Yeah.
of like unlearning,
Yeah.
an effort to unlearn everything that you have
Mhm.
learned before if you really want to come to this place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that does sort of speak to the willingness to let go of comfort, because it is comforting to continually tell yourself, how the world is and how it works.
Exactly.
Yeah. And when you start, you're like, but
Yeah.
wait a minute, how can that be? I'm looking out at the tree and I feel the tree looking back at me, and I can't
Yeah.
tell which sides I'm on. And that doesn't make sense scientifically if you try to think about it, like in
Yeah.
terms of the way you learned about vision.
Exactly.
Um, yeah. I want to say one thing about that, this is just a theory. It doesn't actually matter. So anyone
Go
who's
ahead.
trying to approach
Yeah.
this scientifically, forget about it. You got to do it experientially in your own direct experience. And actually that is scientific. So radically empirical approach means only use what you actually can directly come in contact with. And you'll find out pretty quickly you can't actually come in directly contact with the things you think you can. So if
No.
I say, look out and see, what do you see out there? Oh, I see a picture on the wall. I know there's a wall. I know there's a picture. Okay, but say you're standing there and there's a 9-month-old standing there looking at the same thing. They're not seeing a picture on a wall. They're just seeing that. And they may not be seeing it in the way you think they are, So you can actually look at things in a very empirical way and go, well, wait a minute. The wall and picture is a thought. I learned that at some
Mm-hmm.
point. I actually learned those labels, and I just
Mm-hmm.
bounced back into my mind. So I'm not actually
Mm-hmm.
seeing that when I'm thinking about it. Yeah. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so if you
Exactly.
really take that radical approach, empirical approach, that's great, but you got to be willing. You got to be willing and understand what it means to go beyond thoughts, to go beyond
Yeah.
labels and what you learned out
Yeah.
to direct experience. But
Yeah.
the other theory I have that I think is probably accurate is the reason it seems harder to break that spell of the visual duality, um,
Mm-hmm.
is because our brains use so much of the oxygen, and so much of our cerebral cortex is functioning in the occipital lobe all the time. The
Oh, I
visual
see.
field, like in sound, you notice, or people often notice, as you become more present, or especially when non-duality comes online, the
Mm-hmm.
ringing in the ears that's kind of always there in a sense, the background
Yeah.
sound, it's always there. The
Yeah.
hearing sense filters out a lot, but the visual sense
That's
filters in a
true.
lot. It actually adds a lot to what's happening. So it makes
Okay.
it harder to break the spell of the three-dimensional world you seem to be inhabiting. Also, the
Yeah.
brain, the occipital lobe and the thalamus, the signals go both ways. So as much as many
Wow.
neurons that
Okay.
come from the thalamus to the occipital lobe, just as many neurons go back. So the occipital lobe
That
is like
makes sense.
literally constantly
Huge. Yeah.
recreating what you're seeing in a loop. And you have to learn
Yeah.
to break out of that and actually see what's actually there. And that's why that relaxing and just kind of blurring out the field a little bit can be helpful,
Oh,
or,
wow.
you
Okay.
know,
That
so
makes
anyway,
sense.
that's just my theory, but
That's probably true because the occipital lobe is huge
mhm,
at the back.
yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
processing.
Yeah. 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 So yeah.
Well, I guess I would ask you what time we got here. We got a little bit. Um,
What time is it now?
it's about 6 p.m. here, so I think you're at 9.
I mean,
Wait,
I'm fine
you're
as
good.
long as you
Okay.
don't need to rush to work. Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm good. Um,
Yeah.
what would you say to someone if you were to rewind the tape of your life and kind of meet someone where you were when you
Mhm.
started perceiving suffering? What simple advice would you give that person to um, start to investigate if they're feeling suffering and they feel like there's got to be a way through this or a way out of this?
Mm, I would say you really need to trust your experience. Do not repress anything. That's the very most important thing. You have to be really honest and sincere with yourself. Like if you are suffering, you are suffering. That's it. People can tell you that you shouldn't be suffering. Like, oh, you are so lucky. You have so much. You're healthy. Be grateful. You have a job. You need to be grateful if you have a job. But all this doesn't matter. If you are suffering, you are suffering. You need to be really honest with yourself because you are the only person who can do that. And when you are very honest with yourself, it's like a natural instinct that you will find a way out. And I think this natural intuition and this natural instinct is very powerful. It will, I don't know how it works exactly how, but it will bring you to a lot of, it will open a lot of doors for you. It will guide you in a way to look for what you need to. And it's very different from everyone because I might not be able to tell you what you need to look for because my orientation is very different. My mind is very different. But somehow, when you are being very genuine, very sincere, very honest with yourself, with everything you experience, and not fake it, not cover it with some sweet words of truth, I think it's powerful. That doubt, that sincerity, that honesty is really powerful. It's our natural instinct. It's just
Mhm.
here. It's just in here.
I completely
Don't
agree with you. Authenticity is so
yeah.
important.
Yeah.
And you can start with authenticity by just, you know, as you said, being honest with yourself. What are you really feeling? What are your actual perceptions of what's happening? And then go from there. But it's like kind of like a muscle too. Authenticity, it's not like you suddenly become authentic. You have to
No.
become deeper and deeper with your authenticity and keep
Yeah.
being willing to discover new things. Some are going to feel great about that you discover about yourself, or amazing, or what freeing or expansive, and other things are going to feel really contracted and
Yeah.
challenging and frustrating, but it's okay. All of it's okay. That you could say they're all just different qualities of presence, but be
Exactly.
willing to
Yeah.
keep digging is like
Yeah.
how I
Be
would say.
honest
Yeah.
with yourself because you're the
Yeah.
only one who can be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna say something very different from what you're experiencing. So
Yeah.
it's not them, it's you. You want to find a way out. So you have to be honest with yourself. Like
Mm,
that's it. I think that's
yeah.
the most key thing. I don't know if you have any advice to give, but yeah.
Well, so I was just curious from your perspective, but um, the other thing I wanted to point out though about just your story, which I didn't really know until we talked, is,
Yeah.
you know, the three pillars of Zen. The three pillars are referring to Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, which
Yeah.
for any layperson simply means Buddha represents the teaching itself or the teacher. Dharma
Yeah.
represents the truth. Let's say
The
you know,
teachings. Yeah.
the teachings and the truth. It's the living truth. And
Yeah.
Sangha is any support, but ultimately a group of people around you or some support. But yours were lined up so nicely. You had the intuition to find a good teacher that really worked for you, and you did. You worked hard at this. I mean, you practiced hard, and trusted, even though there was a lot of doubt. And then Sangha you could say, you know, the groups that you looked into and the different things you read, and
Yeah.
you really were willing to take in the knowledge of others around you who are either walking that path
Yeah.
or had walked it. And those three things
Yeah.
really turn out to be quite important. And if you're missing
It
one,
is.
it's still possible, but all three of them really are
Harder.
quite powerful.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. It
you
is.
can
The
do it without a
community is
teacher,
important.
but you can
Yeah.
fool yourself easily without a teacher of any kind.
I would say if you don't have a teacher, you take a longer route.
Mhm,
It's like it's gonna be more years. And
mhm,
I don't have too many years to spend. And that was what I was thinking. I was like,
mhm.
I need to get back to my job at one point, right? And I don't have too much time. I need someone who knows something about this to guide me.
Mm,
That's just an innocent thought at one point.
yeah.
And I really feel that if you don't have a teacher, it will be a longer way. You will eventually get to one point, but it's going to be a bit tough because
Mm,
you're going to just try out so many things when the teacher has already tried out that thing, and with her experience they'll be like, this doesn't work, don't go there, just
mhm,
don't go there, like just focus here, this is it, just go forward. So a teacher would save you a lot of time and effort.
mhm.
That's the efficiency point of view if you want to look
Yeah.
that way. Yeah.
I thought we could have some simple fun. I could ask you, if you want to, I can ask you
Yeah,
about your
yeah,
direct
go for it.
experiences,
Yeah,
just
go for
so
it.
anyone might be able to vibe with that. So, for
Okay.
instance, when you look out into let's say the room and
Mm-hmm.
you see a clock or a picture or any object in the room,
Yeah.
how does that appear to you?
Okay, in my experience now, um, everything everything appears to be showing themselves, reflecting themselves in itself by itself. So, in a very crude way of saying, it would be as if the chair in front of me is aware of itself. But saying that a chair is being aware of itself is like a two moment of awareness. A chair is being aware of itself. So like there's two moments, but it's not like that. It's just the chair is in self already aware. It feels like a person.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's awake.
Mm-hmm.
And everything is aware of itself. Every single particles in my consciousness, in what I'm feeling, perceiving, including the sound, the lights, the books, everything is knowing itself. It's the whole knowing inside that thing itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not here, there. It's just there completely. It's not even there. It's just like that knowing is, you could say the knowing is part of you,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't feel exactly that way. It's just that thing aware of itself, and there is nothing that is not aware of itself.
Yeah.
Does it make any sense?
Makes exact sense to me. I love it. It's
Okay.
beautiful. The
Well,
thing, the thing that's so funny too is when you talk about it, it's like singing from everything. It's so hard to talk about this, but everything
yeah.
just sings its own aliveness. It's really kind
Yeah.
of ecstatic in a sense, but it's not.
Yeah.
There's not someone at the center enjoying it. It's just it's like self enjoying.
Even
Self.
every part, yeah, even every part here is knowing itself.
Mm-hmm,
Even the touch on my buttock on the chair now, it's knowing itself.
mm-hmm,
Even the heat of my body is knowing itself. Every single particle, not excluded in the whole experience, is
mm-hmm.
equal. There is not one sensation more powerful than another. It's
Yeah.
just equal. It's just equal. We call it Buddha nature, we call it suchness, but it's just equal. Yet at this kind of experiencing, you can't even touch that thing because
Mm-hmm,
you are exactly there with that thing itself.
mm-hmm.
You are not this mind, you are not this body, you are not this eyes, ears, nose. That's what they call it in the Heart Sutra.
Mm-hmm,
No eyes, no ears, no nose. It doesn't mean that you do not have it, but
mm-hmm,
you are not this thing here.
mm-hmm.
You are just everywhere, dispersed. It's just saying too much, saying that you are.
Yeah.
It's just this consciousness knowing every single thing in your
Mm-hmm,
whole consciousness. And yet you couldn't grasp it because you are just that thing itself. You can't grasp yourself.
mm-hmm,
You're just that independent thing, and everything is disjointed. It's not
mm-hmm,
linked. It's not tightly linked, because when it's linked, it feels very difficult. Like
mm-hmm.
when it's someone here linking everything, it feels like everything just heaps on you, like the suffering keeps heaping on you. And when it's just open out like that, it's just free. You feel liberated. That's how
Mm-hmm.
I feel like,
Yeah.
wow, it's just itself. It takes care of itself.
Yeah.
There's no one here to take care of anything.
Yeah.
That's nice. I can do whatever I want to. Yeah.
And
And,
it's
and,
in a
and not
sense
an I.
it's
Yeah.
exactly. And the thing that's interesting is liberation will always to the egoic mind sound like a goal for the ego that's going to get it and really enjoy it. But in a sense, to me, it's just this is all self-liberating. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It's an activity, actually. It's an activity not in time either, but it's just self-liberating. And
Yeah.
um in a sense, there's nothing even to say about it at all. But um
Yeah. Yeah.
the
It's
other
beautiful. Yeah.
question, isn't it? The other
Mm.
question I wanted to ask you about it is, do you recognize an intimacy in the sense fields, like in sound, when you taste. Um, is that an aspect of it? Would you describe?
Yeah, it is very intimate. Like I
Mhm.
told you, when the sound started becoming non-dual to me, I realized that I am in the sound.
Mhm.
I'm literally, it's not like my body and mind in there. It's just like my whole sense of being, I would say,
Mhm.
is in that sound. It's like in the middle of it, and the sound is just everything.
Mhm.
If I'm focusing on that sound, my world is just that sound itself. If I'm focusing on a scenery, it's just that scenery encompassing the whole thing. I'm not like a single person being taken out of that picture and staying
Mhm.
here perceiving everything around me. It's
Mhm.
not like that. So it's just everything is me. But saying everything is me, it's very weird because you
Yeah.
don't really feel like a person there and then. It's just
Yeah.
this beingness, this aliveness, like you say,
Mhm.
this dance of consciousness. I would say the words is just too much.
It
You just
is.
have to
Yeah. The other
get
thing I
into it.
wanted to ask is the there are teachings like this, and in addition to this, it is a perceptual experience when the mind clears out, that there's this kind of formless awareness, almost as if
Yeah.
all this stuff is floating in some non-space or some space of non-space, but the awareness is sort of aware of it and watching it move through or something like that. Do you find that to be actually how this is?
Oh, this is not the way um, I experience things because it was at one point.
Mm-hmm.
It was at one point when I was seeing the trees becoming bright. I was identified with an awareness being very huge, big.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am so huge, and everything is happening inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
But that was that gave me a lot of energy imbalance. If anyone wants to know, it wasn't comfortable because I'm clinging to this thing that I need to be this awareness.
Yeah.
So now as I release even the awareness itself, because awareness itself is not something permanent. If any Buddhist is watching this, the three characteristic of everything is impermanent, non-self, and suffering if you hold on it. So we shouldn't give any privilege to this awareness thing. Like I think it's unfair to
Mm-hmm.
awareness. Why should it be like privilege? So even now, the whole awareness is just that thing itself. The chair itself is awareness. If I rub my hand like that, this is awareness. This
Mm-hmm.
touch is awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is awareness. This
Mm-hmm.
this between this is awareness. Everything is awareness.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
Simple. Just let
Mm-hmm.
it go.
Mm-hmm.
Just release that awareness from being like a god.
Yeah.
It's not a god.
Exactly.
It's
Mm-hmm.
just in everything. Every single thing that you perceive is awareness. That's it.
Yeah.
And this feels so freeing because you don't need to hold on to anything. Everything just comes in and go and comes in and go and comes in and go, and it's liberating. It
Mm-hmm.
feels so free. You don't need to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
You literally don't need to do anything. Why would
Right.
you want that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
such a small point, but it makes such a huge
It's
difference
a
in my
huge
experience.
difference. And
Yeah,
the thing with the reason I asked the question is that to me it's a very sneaky identity. It's sort of like when you see that there's no solid identity, the identity functioning can still try to be there, and it turns itself into like a negative identity. And
yeah.
to me it stands out like a sore thumb when somebody's like
Is it
describing it that way, because it's like
okay?
it's so
You
not
become
right.
God.
It's
Yeah,
so off, but
yeah,
you're right. It is there is effort there. There's effort to be that,
yeah,
that beholds all the experiences, and instead of just finally letting the naturalness of the experiences come forth
yeah,
and show you what's really happening,
yeah.
which lets
I
you
think
off
it's
the hook.
okay. Yeah. Yeah, you just let you out of the room. You're just like, bye, I'm gone.
Adios.
It feels so different. It's like yeah, what I wanted to say, I don't remember now. But anyway, yeah, you're right on point. Don't hold on to awareness. It could be okay at one point because it still take you out of your mind and body and you become this huge awareness. So it's like a progress. I totally understand how people would go there.
Mhm.
I don't know in your experience if anyone doesn't go through that kind of phase of identifying with awareness for a while before they really let it off the hook. I do not know whether people do that, but I definitely go through that phase. So
Mhm.
but you shouldn't hold on to it too long, because
I know I
it's
almost
not.
never use that word when I talk to people directly. I don't point them to anything like that.
I
And I
see.
find they
Okay.
actually don't necessarily like reify that typically.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
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 Because what I
I think
try
it's
to do, what
easier.
I try to
Yeah.
do is point them to the senses so frequently that
Yeah.
they just get that intimate taste of it,
Just
even if
go
it's just
straight to it.
experiential. Yeah. And then when,
Yeah.
as the layers of identity collapse, it's like the senses are already kind of popping, you know, they're,
Yeah.
you trust them already. And that,
Yeah.
but yeah, it is definitely a phase of, it's almost as if the space that in which we
Yeah.
created our whole self and
Opens
our
up.
whole world, yeah,
Yeah.
in a sense, well, the structures of it's gone, but the space that we're still trying to hold to be that, to have a world in a self is still sort of there, but it never
Yeah.
was actually, it was never actually there. It was always created. And then we
No.
just
Yeah.
stopped that effort of creating it. It's, you
Yeah. That's very nice description. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think eventually there shouldn't be an I anywhere at all in your consciousness. If there is an I or the mind, there's something there that's
Mhm.
going to come back. Like
Yeah.
the few days ago, things started coming back to here. I was like, whoa, what's that coming back? I know it's not right, but there's something that I'm holding on. I need to
Mhm.
investigate that. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's still a little bit of a bumpy process, even
Mhm.
after awakening.
Yeah.
So you still flip in and out, but it's
I,
less frequent. Say.
yeah. I think what can happen is when it's clear that there's not awareness as a struck as an entity or like a substance or something that can completely collapse, and then the sense fields, the vivid sense appearances, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
they almost can have a remnant of awareness, not as something that's outside aware of them, but almost like a
Mm.
perceptual distance that can kind of still
Yeah.
feel like it's moving toward or away from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
A
our
little bit.
mutual
Yeah.
friend, whose name I won't say online, has said it's not. You realize not only is there no who, there's no what, there's no
Yeah.
where or when,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
that's when that perceptual tendency of coming apart at all is
Yeah.
gone. It's just so
Yeah.
singular. It's just like just this,
Exactly.
literally
Yeah.
just what's right in front of your face, and that's
Yeah.
it's not in front of your face, but it's that, and then that, and then that, and then that, you know. And there's
Yeah.
nothing moving between experiences. That's the
That's
bizarreness
true.
of it.
Yeah. It's just simple. It becomes
Yeah.
really simple.
Mm,
It just surprised me because it is simple. It is so
mm,
much simpler than our usual ordinary perception.
mm.
And I did not expect this at all. Like,
Isn't that the
yeah.
greatest gift, right? It's the
Yeah. It's like,
Dharma
oh, but
seal
this
of
is
no
nice.
self.
Yeah, this is nice. I don't want to be a self anymore. Like no one wants to go back. I don't know whether you want to go back, but not me.
I wouldn't even
Not
know where to
me.
look to even figure out. It doesn't
Yeah,
even,
that's true. You
yeah.
can't really choose.
I love it when people ask me, "Do you feel a self? Do you feel suffering? Do you feel?" And I'm like, well, I don't even know where to look. It's actually a really funny question
Oh
to me. You know,
wow.
I wouldn't know what to take reference from because there's sound
That's
and there's
true.
sensation and there's movement.
Yeah, where do you want to be
It's
yourself?
telling you everything you need to know. It's right there, right there, right there.
Yeah, it's nice. Thanks for
Like the
your
Zen master
description.
that bangs his stick against the ground 3 times and he says, "This is Buddha nature." Just the stick
Well,
banging against the ground, you know. So
that's
beautiful.
true.
It is
Yeah,
true.
so beautiful. Yeah.
Mm, okay. Well, it was wonderful talking to you.
Yeah, wonderful talking to you too. I'm glad we did this, Angelo.
Yeah. Thanks for your
Yeah.
time.
No, thanks for your time. You're going to work now,
People will
right?
get a lot out of it. And I really appreciate it.
I hope so. Yeah, I
Okay.
hope so.
Take care.
Take care too, Angelo.
Thanks.
Thank you.